Hey guys, what's up? It's Crowd9 here with a little discussion video about 3 tactical talents. This card in, I guess overview is incredibly broken. It is a Pot of Greed, a Change of Heart, and a Forceful Sentry. Meaning that if your opponent activates a monster effect on your main phase, you can go ahead and either draw 2, take control of your opponent's monster, or look at your opponent's hand, which is really powerful, and go ahead and send one card from their hand back to the deck, and then your opponent shuffles. We all know that part. This card is a combination of 3 banned cards, which I just mentioned, and again, the only real cost is a requirement to use, which is your opponent activating a monster effect on your main phase. So you might be thinking, this card is obscenely broken. Why is it only $80? This card should be like $200 because it's a Pot of Greed, it's a Change of Heart, and it's a Forceful Sentry. Now, I want to kind of talk about this card because, the more I look at the market, the more I'm kind of like interested in why this card is so relatively cheap, and does it actually play within our meta as of right now? Because you have to remember, our meta is more negate centric as opposed to more just, slower pace control back and forth type of format. And we also don't really have too many cards besides those negations and those hand traps that really play on your main phase. We don't really have Orcus, which kind of uses a monster effect every 2 seconds. We don't have like BA and all those things. Like, we have cards that chain and negate, but that's kind of the problem, is that there's too many negates. I'm going to go ahead and use that Emancipator as a quick example. There is Boral Savage, which is an Omni negate. We have Herald, which is an Omni negate. And we have Appaloosa, which is going to be between 3 to 4 counters for a monster negate. 3 times, which is still really insane. And you have to remember that if you're going second, more than likely, let's say you used an Ash or an Ogre or a Veil or something from your hand, right? So let's say you start off the turn with 5 cards in your hand. Sounds pretty good. And then you're like, oh hey, what do I do now? I have to go through 3 to 4 monster negates, and then I have to bait out 2 Omni negates. So you're not baiting out 1, which is going to be a lot easier, like Lightning Storm, negate. Okay, activate 3 tactical talents, or, something else, just to negate the second one, and then continue your plays. I, as a Mech Knight Invoke player, thought about it in a more going second context, because that's kind of like where it's going to be played out primarily, I would say. Because drawing this in a combo deck and having your opponent just put their cards down and you're just looking at that card doing nothing, sometimes can actually be the reason why you lose, because you might have needed that 5th card, or if that was Pot of Desires, for example, you don't have to wait for your opponent to do anything. The most you do is activate it, banish your 10 for cost, and you draw 2 if they don't have an Ash. And that sometimes is more useful because it's consistent. You always know that it's going to be activated without really worrying about your opponent having to do anything besides, again, Ash or negate. And 3 tactical talents kind of falls on its face for that, because you need to have your opponent respond or have it meet a requirement to activate. Now, if they do, this card is insane, don't get me wrong, and I think it's well worth about the $80 price tag. I think it'll fall around 50 personally. I think Forbidden Droplets is really underestimated. You have a Dark Ruler no more that just sends cards from the field in the hands of the graveyard, and then you just like target 2 things and it's like, okay, attack, win the game, right? So it's weird. To me, that's weird. I feel like it's way better than Dark Ruler. Some decks just live off that free send effect to the graveyard. Like, I'm thinking like Orcus is just in the back seat right now, just like, give me 1 Harp Horror and I will win this game. This will be my game. And it's kind of strange that like a card that has 3 banned cards isn't really valued how we think it might be valued. Then the other context is, we don't play the OCG format, right? They have Crossout Designator, they have Max C, they have Skill Drain at 3, they have these more stun-oriented board wipes, they have Harpy's Feather Duster, like, they have all these cards. And it does change their meta a lot. It's a far more slower paced game state. If you go ahead and just watch like OCG duels on YouTube, and there's a lot of them, they're actually really neat to watch, because it shows you like the different kind of like format that they have. You'll see like an Invoke player, because Invoke, Dogmatica or Jogma in their case is still really, prevalent. If they normal summon Alistair and your opponent drops Max C, you just look at it like, oh, I guess I'll pass. Because by the time you start doing your summoning, going from Alistair to Makaba is Alistair, cool, you don't have to worry about Max C. Almirage, that's 1 free card your opponent draws. Secure Guard, now that's 2, and then Makaba, that's 3. Your opponent's getting 3 free cards off your 1 negate. So sometimes it's better to just stop your turn there. And from there, your opponent can just, the person who got Max C, can activate 3 tactical talents, draw 2, and then set a bunch of cards. their format is slower, so they can go ahead and play trap cards in the main deck without really worrying about it, and that is one of their biggest advantages in their format. We don't have that luxury. A going second deck will very rarely play trap cards besides maybe impermanence, or maybe like one or two key like deck requirement type cards. And again, their format is just overall slower, and that has to be emphasized. They don't have these large explosive boards like we do in the TCG. Even like moderate like combo decks like Invoke can explode their entire board off, and that's not something that they really do or have or want to do. From what I'm seeing in all these videos, it's not like I'm watching one or two. I'm watching a lot to understand how their format is working and why this card might be useful. But that's why you also don't see this card always main decked, but you'll see Forbidden Droplets main decked way more often because they want to win the second turn. They don't really care about your max C if they have a very empty board and they know they can OTK with what they have in their hand, even going through one or two negates. And again, I guess you could play both those cards, but you're kind of like, you have to basically have cards to discard, or I guess send, for the Forbidden Droplets, but then you also have to have your opponent do something to activate their 3 tactical talents, which is not the best. Which is why things like Pot of Desires, it's not you don't have to do anything, you just activate it. That's why sometimes it might be better to run Desires than it is Talents, because I don't need to wait for my opponent to do anything. That Desires is always live, assuming I haven't used it, there's no anti-spell or anything on the board, and I can just activate it. My opponent doesn't have Ash, I draw 2. Simple. I don't need to have my opponent Ash one of my cards, then to do that. And some of you might be like, well, I don't care, I get to draw 2 cards. Sometimes getting your search off is more important than getting 2 cards, and that's something you have to kind of remember, where it's weird to say, I know it's really weird, but I'd rather have an Alistair resolve than a +2, and then hope I get the invocation, you know? And, you know, there's other things involved with this as well. The Change of Heart aspect is only going to be used going second. It's still strong. You can go ahead and take your opponent's Appaloosa, assuming they don't negate it. You have a monster that can attack and negate, and that's insane. Then you have cards like, you know, the Forceful Sentry. You get to see your opponent's hand. You don't need that +2 advantage. Look at your opponent's hand, know what they have, send one of those cards back. Maybe it's their keyed combo piece, or maybe like whatever it might be. Boom, they lose the game. And it's weird. It's weird to like both criticize this card and also like say it's good, because it's both. It's not one or the other. The requirement is the biggest problem. If your opponent doesn't have response, this card does nothing. And again, it's weird. Or if they negate it, you just lost another resource in your hand that could have been something else in the graveyard. And again, it's weird to say that when I'm like trying to say like Desires might be better. But we don't have a card like Change of Heart anymore. Mind Control went to 1. That's a pretty big hit for going second decks. So this is a good option to replace that. You're gonna have to somehow force your opponent to activate effects if they have them. But again, I see this more as a going second option than I do a going first option. As a going first option, your only real thing is Forceful Sentry and Pot of Greed. And if they don't activate anything, both those effects are dead, and you just look at that card in your hand. While going second, there's probably going to be some kind of monster effect activated somewhere along the line, and you're able to draw 2, Change of Heart, or maybe they have something in their hand that you know is going to hurt you, right? Maybe they have an Honest Neos, I don't know, just thinking in my head. And I just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there as like a quick video for you guys, just to think about this card and think about how, like, is it worth the price tag? I don't think it's worth the $80 price tag. I think that Forbidden Droplets and 3 Tactical should switch spots, because Forbidden Droplets is more generic of a card and it just feels too good, right? You just negate cards for free and then you just win that turn, unlike Dark World No More. And then on top of that, you know, every deck can kind of utilize that. Not every deck might be able to utilize the 3 tactical talents. It's so weird to say that when this card is so broken, but that monster effect requirement isn't the greatest, and just having to wait for your opponent to do something can hurt so badly. It's weird. It's so weird for me to say that, I know. Oh my god. It's like if they Ash my Meltdown, then cool, and then I activate 3 tactical, but then I draw 2 and neither of it is an Alistair, and I'm just like, what do I do now? I'm thinking in that context. Or if you're a combo deck and you need that consistency, you don't mind losing 10 cards from your deck, you rather go with the Pot of Desires. You want to guarantee those 2 cards as opposed to maybe getting those 2 cards. So I kind of hope that cleared a little bit for you guys. Maybe you guys got some kind of like idea of what I mean here. But by all means, let me know down in the comment section below. What do you think about 3 tactical talents? Do you think it should get a price reduction in a way? Should it be $50? Should it stay around the $80 to $100 range? This is pre-sales, of course. It could change over time. And do you think it's worth running in the meta right now? Or do you think it might be worth getting and then waiting because it might be good in a later format? So let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll have more videos coming up with some Drogma stuff and some, I guess, more general deck builds. So take care, guys.